Most men will hear this too late, not because the truth is hidden, but because it's uncomfortable. What I'm about to say is the reason some men walk into a room and women feel something immediately, and others can talk for hours and leave no impression at all. It has nothing to do with looks, money, or age, and once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it in your own life. Here's the uncomfortable reality: attraction is not created by trying harder, it's destroyed by it. The more a man tries to be impressive, the more invisible he becomes. And the men who truly attract, especially older men, rarely say what everyone else is saying. They say what most men are too afraid to say out loud. This isn't about tricks. It's not about confidence hacks or rehearsed lines. It's about something far deeper. The psychological signals you send every time you open your mouth. Signals that tell a woman whether you are grounded or seeking approval, whether you are choosing or chasing. Most men never realize the moment attraction dies. It dies quietly, right when they overexplain, rush to impress, or soften their boundaries out of fear of losing interest. And once that moment passes, no amount of charm brings it back. But there is a different way to speak, a way that doesn't beg, perform, or prove, a way that communicates self-respect, calm authority, and emotional independence, without raising your voice or saying much at all. If you stay until the end of this video, you will understand why some men become more attractive with age, why silence can be more powerful than words, and why the right sentence, spoken from the right place, can change how people see you forever. This isn't motivation. This is awareness. And once you see it, you can't go back. Most men misunderstand attraction because they misunderstand power. They think power lives in performance, in sounding impressive, in saying the right thing at the right time, in proving value through words. But attraction does not respond to performance. Attraction responds to self-respect. And self-respect is not something you announce. It's something people feel the moment you open your mouth. When an older man speaks from self-respect, there is no hidden agenda underneath his words. He isn't hoping to be liked. He isn't negotiating his worth. He isn't asking for permission to exist in the space. He is simply present. And presence, when it's grounded, is deeply unsettling to people who are used to men over-explaining themselves. Most men talk too much because they are trying to manage perception. They are trying to steer how they are seen. That impulse alone gives away insecurity. The older man who attracts understands something most never learn. The moment you try to impress, you surrender power, because now your value depends on how the other person reacts. Self-respect changes that equation entirely. A man with self-respect speaks because he has something true to say, not because silence makes him uncomfortable. He does not fill space to be noticed. He allows space because he knows he belongs in it. That difference may sound subtle, but psychologically it is enormous. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional subtext. They hear what is underneath the words. When a man speaks from need, his voice carries tension. When a man speaks from self-respect, his voice carries calm. Calm is not boring. Calm is controlled. Calm signals strength that doesn't need to prove itself. An older man who has self-respect does not chase attention. And paradoxically, that's what draws attention to him. Because attention that isn't demanded feels earned. When he speaks, his words don't rush ahead of him. They arrive exactly when they need to. That restraint communicates confidence more loudly than any bold statement ever could. There is a psychological reason this works. Self-respect signals internal stability. It tells the listener, this man is not trying to use me to regulate his emotions. That alone creates relief. Most people are exhausted by emotional dependency, even when it's subtle. The man who isn't seeking validation becomes a place of rest, not pressure. This is why older men who attract don't try to convince women of their value. They don't list achievements. They don't posture. They don't self-promote. Not because they lack substance, but because they don't need external confirmation of it. Their life already confirms it for them. Self-respect also changes how a man responds to interest. When a woman shows curiosity, he doesn't inflate. When she pulls back, he doesn't collapse. His emotional state doesn't swing with her behavior. That consistency is rare, and rarity creates attraction. Many men believe attraction is about making a woman feel chosen, but self-respect flips that dynamic. It creates mutual selection. The older man is not auditioning, he is observing. And being observed by a man who is not desperate to win approval is strangely compelling, because it places the interaction on equal ground. There is also a philosophical layer to this. Self-respect means you are aligned with your values even when it costs you something. It means you are willing to disappoint others rather than abandon yourself. When a man speaks from that place, his words carry integrity, and integrity is felt instantly, even if it's not consciously named. This is why statements that come from self-respect don't sound rehearsed, they sound settled. There's no tension behind them, no performance anxiety, just clarity. And clarity feels masculine in a way that aggression never will. Older men who have learned this stop trying to be attractive. And in doing so, they become it, because attraction is not created by effort, it is revealed by alignment. When who you are and how you speak are the same thing, there is nothing to question. Self-respect also allows a man to be honest without cruelty. He can say no without guilt. He can express interest without attachment. He can walk away without resentment. That emotional cleanliness is incredibly rare, and people are drawn to what feels clean. Most men fear that if they stop trying to impress, they will become invisible. The opposite happens. When you remove the noise of insecurity, what remains is presence. And presence is impossible to ignore. An older man with self-respect doesn't need to dominate the conversation. He doesn't need to lead with intensity. He lets the interaction breathe. And in that breathing space, attraction has room to grow. This is the real shift. Attraction stops being something you chase and becomes something you allow. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally anchored yourself in your own worth. So if there is one thing to take from this, let it be this. Stop speaking to be admired. Start speaking from alignment. Because the moment you respect yourself enough to stop trying to impress, you become the man others feel drawn to without fully understanding why. Most men believe attraction is about intensity, about being louder, sharper, more dominant. They think presence is something you force into a room. They confuse emotional volume with strength. But the men who truly attract, especially older men, understand a deeper truth: real power is quiet, and quiet power is far more compelling than emotional noise. Calm authority does not announce itself. It doesn't rush. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't compete. It waits. And waiting, when it's rooted in confidence, creates gravity. People lean in, not because they are told to, but because they feel something steady underneath the surface. Psychologically, humans are drawn to emotional regulation. We trust what feels contained. A man who cannot regulate his emotions feels unpredictable. And unpredictability triggers anxiety, not attraction. Calm authority does the opposite. It signals control, not over others, but over oneself. An older man who speaks calmly is not passive, he is deliberate. Every word feels chosen, not spilled. And that selectiveness creates weight. When someone knows they don't need to speak to be relevant, their words land harder when they do speak. Many men believe intensity creates chemistry, but intensity without containment feels unsafe. It feels like pressure. It feels like expectation. Calm authority creates chemistry without urgency. It allows tension to exist without force. And that balance is rare. Think about this. When someone raises their voice, we listen out of instinct. When someone lowers it, we listen out of curiosity. Calm authority works the same way. It doesn't demand attention. It earns it. Older men who attract don't react impulsively. They pause, and that pause communicates confidence more than any aggressive stance ever could. A pause says, I am not ruled by emotion, and emotional mastery is deeply masculine. From a philosophical standpoint, calm authority reflects inner order. When a man has made peace with himself, his external behavior slows down. There is no rush to prove, no hunger to dominate, just grounded presence, and grounded presence is felt immediately by others. This is why women often describe certain men as safe but exciting. That combination only exists when calm authority is present. Safety comes from regulation. Excitement comes from restraint. When a man could escalate but chooses not to, desire grows in the space between possibility and control. Older men who understand this stop chasing reactions. They don't seek emotional spikes. They allow emotions to unfold naturally. And because they are not forcing outcomes, interactions feel organic rather than engineered. Calm authority also changes how a man handles conflict. He doesn't argue to win. He doesn't raise his voice to be heard. He states his position once, clearly, and lets it stand. That certainty is unsettling to people who rely on chaos to feel powerful. There is something deeply attractive about a man who remains steady when others become emotional. Not detached, not cold, but composed. Composition signals leadership, and leadership, at its core, is the ability to remain stable when others cannot. Many men fear that if they soften their intensity, they will lose their edge. But calm authority is not softness. It is precision. It is knowing exactly how much energy to apply and when. Just like a skilled surgeon does not rush, a grounded man does not overreact. When an older man speaks calmly, he creates emotional contrast. In a world addicted to overstimulation, calm feels rare, and rare feels valuable. People instinctively move toward what feels scarce. Calm authority also communicates boundaries without confrontation. You don't need to say much when your energy already sets the tone. When a man is comfortable in silence, silence becomes a boundary. And boundaries that don't need explanation feel unbreakable. From a psychological lens, this works because calm authority removes ambiguity. The nervous system relaxes around people who are regulated, and relaxation opens the door to attraction. You cannot desire what feels chaotic for long. Older men who embody calm authority don't need to dominate space. They occupy it fully. Their presence is centered, not scattered. And centered energy is grounding to be around. This is why calm men are often underestimated by insecure ones, because calm doesn't look impressive at first glance, but over time it becomes undeniable. Consistency always outlasts intensity. Calm authority also allows a man to be emotionally available without being emotionally needy. He can listen without fixing, respond without rescuing, care without clinging. That emotional balance is rare, and rarity creates value. Many men think attraction is about being unforgettable in the moment. Calm authority understands something deeper. Attraction is about being unforgettable over time. And consistency, not fireworks, creates memory. An older man who lives this way doesn't chase chemistry. He creates conditions where chemistry can emerge. And when it does, it feels effortless rather than forced. This is not about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. Calm authority is emotion under command, not emotion denied, and command over oneself is the highest form of power. So if you want to embody this, start here. Slow down your reactions, choose your words, let silence work for you. Because the man who remains calm in a world addicted to noise doesn't just stand out. He becomes the standard others unconsciously measure themselves against. Most men hear the word boundaries and immediately think of distance, rejection, pushing people away. They assume that if they draw lines, attraction will disappear. But the opposite is true. Attraction doesn't grow in unlimited access. It grows in structure. And boundaries are structure. A man without boundaries feels available to everyone and anchored to nothing. His time is flexible, his standards are negotiable, his reactions are emotional, and emotionally that feels unstable. People may enjoy the attention, but they don't respect it, and without respect, attraction fades quickly. Boundaries are not rules you announce loudly, they are standards you live quietly. When an older man has boundaries, he doesn't need to threaten, argue, or explain himself. His behavior already communicates what is acceptable and what is not. That clarity creates a sense of order, and order is deeply attractive. Psychologically, boundaries signal self-worth. They say, I value my time, my energy, and my emotional well-being, and when a man values himself, others instinctively value him too. Not because he demands it, but because he models it. Many men try to keep attraction by being agreeable, by tolerating behavior they don't respect, by staying silent when something doesn't sit right. They believe flexibility keeps connection alive, but what it actually does is teach people how to treat them, and people rarely desire what they can disregard. An older man who attracts understands this. He knows that desire doesn't grow from constant access. It grows from knowing that access can be lost, not in a manipulative way, but in a natural consequence way. If something does not align with his values, he removes himself, calmly, cleanly, without drama. That removal is powerful because it's not emotional, it's principled, and principles create safety. People feel safer around men who have standards, even when those standards limit them, because standards mean predictability, and predictability builds trust. Boundaries also protect attraction from resentment. When a man constantly compromises himself to keep someone close, resentment builds quietly, and resentment leaks out in passive aggression, sarcasm, or emotional withdrawal. Attraction cannot survive in that environment. Clear boundaries prevent that decay before it starts. Older men with boundaries don't over-explain their decisions. Over-explaining is often an attempt to be understood so we can be accepted. Boundaries don't need acceptance to exist. They simply are, and when a man can state a boundary without apology, it communicates confidence and self-trust. There is also a philosophical dimension here. Boundaries are an extension of identity. If you don't know who you are, you can't know what you allow. And if you don't know what you allow, others will decide for you. An older man who has done the internal work knows where he ends and others begin. That clarity is rare, and rarity creates attraction. Women often test boundaries, not consciously, but instinctively. Not to challenge a man, but to understand him. A man with weak boundaries reacts emotionally to these tests. He gets defensive, angry, or pleading. A man with strong boundaries responds calmly. He doesn't punish. He doesn't explain excessively. He simply holds his line. That calm firmness is deeply attractive because it signals emotional maturity. It says, I can care about you without abandoning myself. That balance is what many people are unconsciously searching for. Boundaries also create polarity. When a man stands firmly in who he is, it allows others to relax into who they are. When he doesn't collapse under pressure, he becomes a stable reference point, and stability is seductive in a world full of emotional volatility. Many men fear that boundaries will make them seem cold, but coldness comes from detachment, not from standards. Boundaries actually allow warmth to exist safely. When you know where the edges are, you can relax inside them. An older man with boundaries doesn't try to control outcomes. He controls access. And access is where power lives. Not power over others, but power over one's own life. That autonomy is attractive because it cannot be taken, only respected. From a psychological perspective, boundaries reduce anxiety. When expectations are clear, the nervous system calms down. Calm creates openness. Openness allows attraction to deepen. Chaos does the opposite. Boundaries also reveal character. Anyone can be charming when things are easy, but when a man calmly enforces a boundary, you see who he really is. And authenticity is magnetic. This is why boundaries don't push the right people away. They filter. They remove those who benefit from your lack of standards and reveal those who respect your presence. And respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. Older men who understand this stop negotiating their worth. They stop tolerating behavior that erodes their self-respect. And in doing so, they become more desirable, not less. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. Attraction does not grow where there are no edges. Desire does not deepen where there is no self-respect. Set your boundaries calmly. Hold them consistently, because the man who respects himself teaches the world exactly how to treat him. And that lesson changes everything. Most men spend their lives speaking from hunger without realizing it. Hunger for validation, hunger for attention, hunger to be chosen, and hunger leaks into language in ways people can feel instantly. Even when the words sound confident, the energy underneath says, "I need something from you." That is where attraction quietly collapses. Speaking from wholeness is different. Wholeness means you are not trying to fill an internal gap through external approval. It means your sense of self is already intact before the conversation begins. When an older man speaks from that place, his words don't reach outward, they stand on their own. Wholeness does not mean perfection, it means integration. It means you've accepted your strengths, your flaws, your past, your choices. You are not hiding from who you've been, and you're not begging to be seen as something you're not. That internal honesty creates a kind of emotional solidity that people immediately feel. Most men speak reactively. They adjust their tone based on how they are being received. If interest rises, they lean in harder. If interest drops, they panic or overcompensate. That constant adjustment reveals inner instability. Speaking from wholeness removes the instability. Your words no longer depend on reaction. They reflect identity. Psychologically, this matters because humans trust consistency. A man whose emotional center doesn't move every time the environment shifts feels safe to be around. Safety does not kill attraction. It allows attraction to deepen beyond surface-level excitement. An older man who speaks from wholeness does not overshare to create connection. He understands that intimacy is not created by exposure alone. It is created by discernment. He shares because it aligns with his values, not because silence makes him anxious. There is a calm finality in his language, not because he is closed, but because he is complete. His sentences do not trail off hoping for approval. They land, and when words land, people listen differently. Speaking from wholeness also means you are not trying to manage how others feel about you. You allow them to have their own reactions. Approval is welcomed but not required. Disapproval is acknowledged but not internalized. That emotional independence is deeply attractive because it signals strength without hostility. Many men confuse emotional detachment with wholeness. They shut down feelings and call it control. But wholeness is not numbness. It is presence without dependency. You can feel deeply without being destabilized. You can care without clinging. That balance is rare. An older man who has reached wholeness does not chase connection. He creates space for it. He listens without preparing his next line. He responds without trying to steer the outcome. His attention is grounded, not strategic, and grounded attention is powerful. From a philosophical perspective, wholeness is alignment between inner values and outer behavior. When what you believe, what you say, and what you do are consistent, there is no internal friction. That lack of friction shows up as ease. And ease is magnetic. This is why speaking from wholeness feels different to the listener. There is no manipulation, no emotional hooks, no pressure to respond a certain way. The interaction feels clean. Clean interactions stand out because most people are used to emotional messiness. Wholeness also changes how a man handles rejection. He doesn't personalize it. He doesn't argue with it. He doesn't internalize it as a verdict on his worth. He sees it as information, and that calm acceptance often creates more curiosity than resistance ever could. When a man is whole, he does not use words to secure his position. His position is already secured internally. That internal security frees him to be honest. And honesty, when it's not self-serving, is compelling. Older men who speak from wholeness also understand timing. They don't force conversations to go deeper than they naturally want to go. They let trust build at its own pace. That patience communicates confidence in abundance rather than fear of loss. There is also something deeply attractive about a man who does not need to be understood immediately. He is comfortable being misinterpreted temporarily because he trusts that consistency will clarify him over time. That patience signals depth. Most people are trying to be seen. A whole man is already seen by himself. That self-recognition removes urgency from his words, and without urgency, desire has room to breathe. Speaking from wholeness also affects silence. Silence is no longer awkward. It becomes part of the conversation. A man who is whole does not rush to fill gaps. He allows pauses, and pauses create tension in the best possible way. This is why women often say they feel drawn to certain men without knowing why. It's not about charisma, it's coherence. The man makes sense energetically. There is no contradiction between who he says he is and how he shows up. Wholeness also brings humility, not false humility, but grounded humility. A whole man doesn't need to dominate conversations or prove intelligence. He knows his value isn't diminished by listening. And listening deeply is one of the most underrated forms of attraction. When a man speaks from wholeness, he is not trying to be remembered. He is trying to be real, and reality leaves a deeper impression than performance ever could. This is the final evolution of attraction, not intensity, not strategy, not persuasion, but integration. When your inner world is settled, your outer words become steady. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this: stop speaking to be completed. Start speaking from completion, because the moment you become whole within yourself, your words stop reaching for others, and others begin reaching for you.